What's up, folks? We are testing something out here in the world of YouTube streaming. YouTube gave me, I think it exists for other folks, but they gave me access to the dual stream. So basically, I have free sort of built into YouTube streaming of horizontal and vertical on the shorts feed, but they also gave me like some opportunity to like edit this. So I don't know. We're gonna see how this works in the grand scheme of things. But yeah, there's been a bunch of news in the world of Dungeons and Dragons over the past couple of days. And I thought maybe rather than making a standalone video or several videos covering all of this, we could just do a live stream and just talk about it. I haven't streamed in a minute here. Also, YouTube pushing just behind the curtain right there, pushing live streaming at the moment. No, it's all good. I think I fixed it anyway. Um, so should be all set now. Um, but yeah, let's see. I've got 5 main sort of articles, if you will. Um, and we're going to go ahead and take a look at all those. Most of these are just N-World articles, though they may link to other things. So we're going to go ahead and look at those. I'm trying to figure out what the best way to go about and do this is, because there's some other interesting stuff that's happened, right? We did get Dr. Drolin's Dictionary of Dinosaurs dropped on D&D Beyond today. I have a few other things that some folks have reached out to me about that are cool, like D&D, like supplemental things. I don't know what you got, like I guess apps or websites that are really cool that allow you to develop some other things for Dungeons and Dragons. So I want to take a look at some of those. I don't know what we're going to get to today. Just know that I'm going to be increasing my live stream output. So more of that in the near future. Also, yes, if you missed it, I put out a couple of videos, both a long form video and a short form video covering the new Ravenloft book. I didn't realize that if I scroll down and click on the actual product details in the long form video, it basically tells you every single thing that's going to be in the Ravenloft book, which was kind of cool. So not only will you be getting a brand new subclass for the Artificer, which again, in 5th edition, this is the first time we're going to be seeing a new Artificer subclass, which the Artificer is not officially considered like, it's not in the player's handbook, I guess. It is considered an official base class, but it is not in the player's handbook. So this is the first time we're getting a subclass for a class that exists outside of the player's handbook. We had seen the updated, what was it, the Scion, right, in one of the Unearthed Arcana. So in theory, whenever the Scion comes out, if we ever get the Scion, there's the potential that we could possibly see Scion subclasses at some other point down the road in different books, which is exciting, as opposed to just having to continually reprint the base class to just add on subclasses. So this is a good sort of future proof for that, which I like. Chris and Jeremy leave D&D, and now the Lupin are coming via Ravenloft. Yeah, right? So also, if you buy, I don't know if you buy the book. Actually, we might be able to figure that out in the process of doing this sort of little news review, or go to the marketplace on D&D Beyond and see if we pick up Ravenloft not in the bundle, because we've been looking at everything in like the ultimate bundle. But it does appear that potentially, if you were to buy this book, you will get access to the Artificer in a digital only format by buying Ravenloft. We're presuming at this point it is just the base Artificer class, and then you'll get the base Artificer class so that you can use the Reanimator subclass. because obviously if you were to buy the subclass and not have the base class, it doesn't work. So this is also the first time we're going to see that in concept and practice in the world of D&D Beyond and D&D 5e. So anyway, let's go ahead. I didn't realize I don't have chat turned on. We will go ahead and do that for everybody. But yeah, so I've got, like I said, 5 different articles covering a variety of different things in the world of D&D. So we're going to go ahead and let me just make sure that these are all hooked up accordingly. They are not. Let's go ahead and do that real quick. And then we'll be good to continue on here. First time here, but long time a fan. Oh, well, welcome everybody who's just making their way in here. Sorry, this was planned. I actually had planned to do this live stream significantly earlier in the evening, but time just kind of got away from me. So here I am doing it now at midnight for me. So it is what it is. But next time I plan to do these streams earlier in the evening, so you guys have a little bit more of an opportunity to actually, be a part of this and know that things are coming and like announce them in advance, so it's not just happening at the absolute last second. So again, future plans for this. So anyway, do you suppose the Lupin are intended to replace the Shifter? No, I do not think they're intended to replace the Shifter. I think especially because we just got the Shifter as a species in Eberron Forge of the Artificer, I do not believe the intent is to replace them. I believe the concept is for them to just be, a new species entirely. So yeah. Hey, well, let's go ahead and dive into these articles here. Let me just see. I thought this chat bot was working. It doesn't appear to be. But let's go ahead. Oh, no, it's supposed to be. All right, well, let's go ahead and refresh this. There we go. All right. So, one thing, you know what? We were talking about Ravenloft. Won't the Lupin be redundant with the werewolf species in the Crooked Moon? Well, you can't count third party. So this is first party, and there is history. The Lupin do exist in the world of Dungeons and Dragons. I forget, I think it was in a Dragon magazine. I have that Dragon magazine kicking around here somewhere, but they did exist previously. Let's see. I don't know if we've seen, yeah. Known from second edition's Red Steel setting. They've been adapted over the years, blah, blah, blah. Pretty sure, like I said, they were in a Dragon magazine. They might have existed. I know Dungeon Dad had done a video on them. The D&D dog race, this was like 3 years ago or something. He had done a video on it as well. So I don't think this is a replacement for the Shifter. And I don't think it's going to be... I think they actually have lore that they don't like where creatures are lycanthropes. I could be wrong on that. But again, you can't compare things. I mean, I guess you can. Let me rephrase. You can compare first-party things to third-party things that are released, like anything from Crooked Moon or Grim Hollow or any of that stuff. However, WotC makes their own stuff, and you can obviously choose to use it or not. Like there are third-party related content that you might see something similar, and you're just going to have to make the choice to choose. But they can't build their game and their releases around what third parties produce. They can maybe partner with them in a way that you get to see it on D&D Beyond, but we can't. They're not going to build around what a third party creator has made. Do we think we'll ever get the bear folk species bee folk species? I'm sorry, or an actual myconoid species like the ones in BG3? Um, that's a good question. So we, I mean, we've had, we've had thrycreen as a, that's like a, an insect people, not necessarily a bee person. And I don't know. I mean, we might get myconids at some point where we have, they're a creature that exists in the monster manual, right? But will we see them as a playable species? I think anything is possible. And obviously, the longer the game exists, the more likely this is to happen, especially if we're not going to a brand new edition. And I know we're now in 5.5e, which is kind of a new edition, kind of not really. If we were to go to like a 6th edition, let's say something where we cut everything we had and we were starting fresh, then the likelihood of seeing something like that is limited because of the fact that you have to now start re-rolling everything out, starting out with your base stuff, although we kind of have been doing that anyway. So as long as there's people out here picking up content and buying stuff, I think the opportunity for something like that to exist is definitely plausible. Um, so yeah, thrycreen are more mantis or ant, things like that. Yeah, but they're insectoid in a way, but they are not traditional bee. Although I think that might be a home brewer's opportunity there. All right. First of all, let's answer the question about Van Richten's. So I went to, I'm sorry, not Van Richten's, Ravenloft: The Horrors Within, which is essentially the newest version of Van Richten's Guide to Ravenloft. So here we are on D&D Beyond in the marketplace. I've gone to not the bundle, just Ravenloft: The Horrors Within, and I've gone down to just the digital option, which is why you're seeing $39 as the price tag. If we scroll down and look at the product details, we are in fact getting one class, the Artificer, D&D Beyond digital only, and then obviously all of the other stuff that's going to be in there. But this does confirm that the Artificer, at least access to the class version of the Artificer. Well, again, maybe you get subclasses, maybe you don't. We don't know. We're presuming not, because that would be the opposite of sales. But even if you're so it's not tied to the bundle. So even if you just buy the digital version of Ravenloft: The Horrors Within, you are going to get access to the base version of the Artificer, as well as the Reanimator Artificer subclass. So if you don't care about the other 5 subclasses for the Artificer and you really only want the Reanimator, I would say wait until someone like myself or someone else does reviews on this so you can see if it's actually something you're interested in. But if you only want this subclass and don't care about the other 5, then you can pick up this book and get the base class and the subclass for usage in your character creator for D&D Beyond. Maybe they could drop Bee Folk in the next Feywild book. Yeah, I mean, Bee Folk, that kind of stuff does feel Feywild-ish. So if we do get like a Fey source book, or, I'm not a huge magic person, right? Is there a bee like folk race or species in Magic the Gathering? Because then you stand an even better chance of getting something like that to appear if they decide to do a crossover at some point. Third party content has no bearing on official content. Yep, that's true. So they are way due for more Feywild antics. Yeah, I mean, I think we're gonna start to see. So we're starting to see these seasons, right? So that's actually gonna play into somewhat on some of the news that we're gonna discuss here in a minute. So we know we're having the season of horror, right? That's where we're at right now. So we're getting Ravenloft. We know we're going to get the season of magic, and that's going to get us Arcana Unleashed. Then we know the season of champions is the final one. And I think that's going to be the Melf book that we've heard about from Luke Gygax that he's working on, Melf's Guide to Greyhawk or whatever it's called. I think that's going to be later this year. It's enough that they have a name for it. It's not speculative at this point. Like, we know it's coming. I'm assuming that's going to be the book for the end of the year, although I'm not sure. So anyway, I just wanted to cover that little bit here about Ravenloft. So we're going to see something, new things appearing, because if you want to get the Artificer base class for, again, only for usage, in the digital character creator of D&D Beyond. If you were to buy the physical book of Ravenloft: The Horrors Within, you're just going to get the subclass, and then you'd have to buy Forger the Artificer to have the physical book of the base class. So, okay. So we were just talking about third party. Well, this is a great segue. Wizards of the Coast is hiring. Sorry, ads on N-World are just the worst. Hiring I hate that they call it TRPG. I don't know why they do it, but that's what they do. Publishing lead to coordinate third-party publishing. So, for those of you questioning, let's go ahead and read this article. So, Wizards of the Coast has posted a job listing for a new TRPG publishing lead for D&D, a position responsible for coordinating, quote, externally developed D&D content. Over the weekend, Wizards turned to LinkedIn to promote the new job, which will be based out of their Renton, Washington office. The new job is described as sitting at the intersection of creative direction, franchise strategy, and program management, ensuring that externally produced content meets the creative brand and standards of D&D while benefiting from the unique strengths of our partners. The position will help to build a 2P/3P publishing pipeline, so second party to third party publishing pipeline, and help to develop product architect briefs into clear partner direction, driving schedules and gates, and ensuring we deliver on time, on budget, and at D&D quality. While interested bystanders are left to read in between the lines as to what this post could mean for D&D, the most obvious answer is that Wizards is preparing to turn to third-party publishers to develop future D&D products. Wizard had a history of working with third-party publishers on early 5e campaign material, and has also collaborated with Critical Role and then employees of the Magic the Gathering team for other products. The news that D&D may be relying on more third-party publishers shouldn't be a massive surprise. And again, Melf's Guide to Greyhawk, which we had just talked about, appears to be an externally developed project with minimal Wizards involvement on the project team. For those interested in the position, the responsibilities are listed as follows. And, kind of goes through: serve as the creative lead for externally developed D&D content, establish and communicate clear creative vision, pillars, tones, etc., review and approve creative deliverables to ensure alignment with D&D lore, brand values, and player expectations, participate in RFPs, pitches, and evaluations, providing creative and strategic assessments of partner capabilities, act as a creative liaison between external partners and internal Wizards teams, gather, synthesize, and represent internal feedback, partner plus program management, again, for that pipeline we just talked about, and then strategic contribution, contribute to broader franchise discussions about content strategy, audience needs, the creative evolution, find opportunities where external development can expand capacity, blah, 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 right? So, what does that mean? Well, ultimately, we don't know. We'll find out potentially, but here's what I'll give to you. If you recall, if you were back with D&D in the time of 2014, when it first launched, none of the adventure modules were developed by Wizards of the Coast. They were all developed by third parties with, working either with Wizards of the Coast or approved by Wizards of the Coast or what have you. Some things, like what I would consider is probably heralded as one of the best pieces of D&D starter content out there. One of my favorite adventures, Lost Mines of Phandelver, was not developed by Wizards of the Coast. Or maybe it was? I don't recall, actually. I thought Lost Mines of Phandelver was made by Cobalt Press, but actually, now that I think about it, I think that might be Rise of Tiamat. Yes. Horde of the Dragon Queen and Rise of Tiamat were developed by Cobalt Press. Lost Mines of Phandelver might be made by Wizards of the Coast. Let me see if I can look that up real quick. I might want to make sure before I say the wrong thing. Let's go. Who made? Let's see if Google can give me who made Lost Mines of Phandelver. Okay, it looks like that was Wizards of the Coast. My bad. Chris Perkins was the designer on that. Rich Baker and Chris Perkins. I misspoke. Let me rephrase. Hoard of the Dragon Queen, and Lost Mines of Fandover. So this was the starter set. So let's set that aside. The first 3 campaigns or long form adventures that were released for 5th edition were made by third parties. So we had Hoard of the Dragon, which was first, it was in 2 parts. We had Hoard of the Dragon Queen and Rise of Tiamat, which has now been rebranded and repackaged as Tyranny of Dragons. Those were both developed by Kobold Press. And I know, having spoken to some of the people that were on the Kobold Press team at the time that those were developed, that Lost Mines of Fandelver was designed to be the intro starter for people that were newer to the game and wanted a less challenging version, and that people who wanted some that were more veterans and wanted a more challenging experience were supposed to be the ones to play Hoard of the Dragon Queen. Which, if you played original Hoard of the Dragon Queen as it was written in the book, you know that that beginning is exceptionally brutal and pretty deadly, because you're doing back-to-back-to-back encounters over a very long period of time in one night with no long rest at level 1. Granted, I don't know if it was ever marketed anywhere that was the intention, but I have heard that was the intention, at least behind the scenes. So that also, if you notice, there's a theme here. That was a level 1 to 15 adventure between those 2 books. The second release campaign was Princes of the Apocalypse, which was, again, a sort of remake or a sort of retelling of Tomb of Elemental Evil, right? And it was made by Sasquatch Games, I believe. And then that was also a level 1 to 15 campaign. And then Out of the Abyss, which is also a level 1 to 15 campaign, was made by Green Ronin Games. So the first sort of 3 major releases, long-form campaign modules, also happened to be levels 1 through 15, were all made by third parties. So we obviously have Melf's Guide to Greyhawk as an example, but could we be seeing this? This is something a lot of you have been saying in the comments and have been commenting about, saying things along the lines of like, why are we getting a third-party D&D Beyond roadmap before we get a first-party roadmap? Because that did happen, if you recall, earlier this year. We got the roadmap for D&D Beyond, both D&D Beyond and D&D third-party partner releases, well before we got anything about what plans for actual first-party releases for this year. And some people had basically said, oh, well, I think that's very clear. That's what Wizards of the Coast is going to be doing. They're going to not produce as much content and rely on third parties. But then we had the comment that we mentioned from earlier that third party has no bearing on official content. Well, now it might actually be that way, and we might be relying more on third party to produce content. Now, why is that? Is it just because we don't have the power, the manpower in Wizards of the Coast to do this? Or are they trying to expand? Which that could be part of it too, right? Maybe it's going to be like, okay, you'll get maybe 4 first-party official releases a year, let's say. This is me making up a number, but let's just say that. Not including like these weird double book releases, but let's say like 4 major first-party releases, 1 a quarter. But then you'll also might get an additional third-party release through Wizards of the Coast throughout. And again, we haven't seen, or we have seen this in the past, right? We saw Explorer's Guide to Wildmount was a Critical Role piece of content produced through Wizards of the Coast. And what's weird is like it's now considered partnered content on D&D Beyond, but it was not considered, like if you remember when that released, it wasn't really considered partnered content. It was an official release and everybody considered it to be an official release, the subclasses to be official, etc. And now it's listed, when you go to like filter your library, it's listed as partnered content, which I thought was an interesting choice. But I'm pretty sure that Acquisitions Incorporated is not listed as a partnered release. It's listed as a piece of 5th edition content, which also technically, I guess, would have been partnered content. Because that was another one of these where I had heard, they mentioned it on one of the live streams for the C team that they were thinking about doing their own book at a point. The Penny Arcade team thinking about doing their own book to potentially do, like, probably through Kickstarter. And that's what everybody does, right? You're going to make your own book, release it through Kickstarter. And then Wizards of the Coast was like, well, let's just do it together. So they did. And then we had, was it Call of the Netherdeep, right? That was a Critical Role adventure module that was released through Wizards of the Coast. And then we've had the couple of Magic the Gathering ones, right? Mythic Odysseys of Theros, Guildmaster's Guide to Ravnica. We've had a handful of these Magic the Gathering tie-ins, which are official products from Wizards of the Coast, but they're sort of, that one's more closer because it's still Wizards of the Coast. But you know what I mean? We've had this happen in the past. So I think this is going to be basically what we're going to start to see more of. I don't think it means we're not going to see any first-party content releases. I think that means we're going to see them probably themed around the season, right? So, maybe if Season of the Champions is going to be Melf's Guide to Greyhawk, and it's going to be interesting to see, like, this new position that we just talked about is basically just like sniff out interesting third-party content that can be sort of produced and published in-house, but then to also make sure it's of a quality that is befitting of Wizards of the Coast. Because they're not just going to grab anything, like go, trolling through the DM's guild and find something and say, yep, let's make this something. There's some things I think they should do. I think grabbing stuff like any of the stuff Keith Baker's worked on, like exploring Eberron and those things, I think would be prime examples of things you could grab and then, like, canonize them, right? Make them official, as opposed to just being like third-party partnered content, make them more like official. But I don't know. I guess we'll see. You guys have had a lot of comments as I've been rambling over here. Let's see what you have to say. Let's see. So it's safe to assume third-party content being overseen like this is more like, quote, we want to make this thing, but you guys make it for us. Not like you guys made a cool thing. Can we publish it? We don't know. It could be either one of those things. It could be both. Where, like, hey, we want to do a thing. Let's outsource it to a third party that we trust. I mean, well, let me ask you guys, which would you prefer, right? If you had an option and you could make the call, wave a magic wand, right? Would you rather Wizards of the Coast, with this new third-party position that we were just talking about, would you rather them be like, hey, this is a thing we want to make, whatever it might be? Could be Dragonlance, could be another attempt at Spelljammer, could just be some new Forgotten Realms content, whatever it is. We want to make this thing, but we don't have the bandwidth to make it. Let's find a trusted third party that we like, Dungeon Dudes, Crooked Moon, Vantress, whatever, whoever it is. We trust you guys. We want you to develop this. And then we're going to have our third party sort of overseer person have check-ins with you and facilitate and keep an eye on it and make sure it's up to the quality that we expect as Wizards of the Coast and Dungeons and Dragons. Or would you rather them sort of find somebody making a cool thing and are like, hey, this is really cool. We really like what you're working on. Can we work together to publish it under Wizards of the Coast, as opposed to you guys going to Kickstarter or something else? Let's do it together. So, get the backing and the marketing of Wizards of the Coast, and it's, considered an official D&D product. Which one would you prefer? That sort of, hey, help us make a thing we want to make, or you're making a cool thing, let's partner together to publish it. The lack of a true adventure that uses the 5.5 rules or even the remasters, the others. Yeah, I mean, we're going to get one in Deadfall, but that doesn't come out till the fall. What if they just assign someone to vet, edit the third-party stuff they publish on Beyond, and then call it legal for all games? That's a thing they could do. I don't know if they'd go that far. I wonder if that's because of Daring Team Press now. Or I'm thinking this was back to the reference of why Wildmount is now partnered content. Could be. Maybe part of trying to rebuild goodwill and reputation. Yeah, I mean, that I think everything we're seeing, every sort of like experimental change and like adjustment to the way they go about doing things are definitely all in efforts to consciously try to rebuild the reputation and the trust that was burnt. I would like the best writers with the best ideas to make it happen. I'm honestly cool with them getting qualified companies to do their ideas. That lets indie third-party publishers keep hold of their own ideas. True. Watsy, Ted, make us a Feywild book. Listen, if they want to hire me to work on stuff, I will do that. But like, I'm gonna like, that's really, I have zero insight into any of that happening. But that would be cool if they want to be like, hey, you want to work on a book together? Not saying that I don't have ideas for books and things that I would possibly take to Kickstarter and stuff in the future, but yeah, if they want, you know, some people are always like, oh, like, and like, I'll be upfront with you. I don't want that position. Like, I'm not even applying for it. Not that I ever, you know, that was in the running, but like, I don't know. I think I prefer the degree of separation that I have. And we talked about this in a previous live stream. Like, if you could get the opportunity to come in and take over Wizards of the Coast and like do whatever you wanted, like and make sweeping changes and stuff, would you want to? And then like, what would you do and all that kind of stuff. And I don't know. I think it's, you know, one, the accusations of being a shill would just obviously fly through the roof, right? Obviously, no matter what. Anybody who does that, really, especially if you're like from the community and you get elevated into a position, people are going to have things to say. But I like the degree of separation of being able to like still be like invited to talk on different things and meet with different people, but still have the ability to retain my own like creative insight and like opinions on things without having it like color my you know, what I want to say, because I'm like working for the company. Like, obviously, you know, you start working for Wizards of the Coast, I presume, like, if that were to happen and I were to do that, I imagine that like, hey, you're now a salaried employee of Wizards of the Coast for Dungeons and Dragons. I don't think I could do nerd immersion anymore, right? I don't think that would work. I think I'd have to stop because like that's a conflict of interest, I assume. But you know, I don't know. Some of you guys said you'd rather you trust the third parties to do their own thing and sort of keep it separate. So I mean, like I said, this position obviously has not been filled. It's been recently posted. You know, maybe it's the right fit for some of you out there. And if it is, I wish you the best of luck. But, you know, it is going to be an interesting landscape. I feel like we've been saying that for the past 2 years. We are in the rebuilding trust stage. There's been a lot of goodwill bought, but there's still a lot to be earned. And again, some of you have said this in comments and things that they'll never win you back fully, because you'll always have that sort of chip on your shoulder. You'll always remember what happened with the OGL, and it's a major part of things. Also, there's some people that are coming into the game right now that don't even know what it is or what happened. Also, there's a ton of people out there that just play the game and had no idea anything happened anyway, even when it was going on. Some people have told me that they do feel like there is an opportunity where they could be won back fully and basically forgive Wizards of the Coast if they do certain things. But most people, I would say, are like, yeah, they can continue to try to rebuild trust, and I think they should. But ultimately, at the end of the day, they're probably not going to ever forget what happened. There's really not enough good things they can do to make you forget of the sins of the past. And I get that. I kind of feel the same way. Let's see. Them firing Todd still makes no sense. The number guys really kneecapped their media on that one. So to that point, I think there's opportunities there. I'm not saying that was the right call, but they obviously have that their YouTube presence is much more diminished. But again, they used to have a big Twitch presence back in the day, right? They used to live stream stuff all the time. They used to do in-house actual plays for like they used to sponsor or I don't know if they sponsored or how it worked other, groups out there that were playing the game, and they'd be like when hosting was a thing. I don't think you can host on Twitch anymore, but you used to be able to like host other streams on your Twitch. They would host other streams for like, they'd host Critical Role, they'd host Acquisitions Incorporated, the C Team. That they'd have other groups stream, probably I'm guessing using their stream key to the Wizards of the Coast channel. They do things like Force Grey Giant Hunters, right? Where they do these limited series videos on like YouTube and Twitch, and they'd air them at the same time or do premieres or whatever the case may be. So I think like that kind of, I also, like I've said several times, I'd love a behind the scenes sort of thing where they're like, hey, this is, this is the little behind the curtain as to the design process of something. I think a cool like behind the scenes inside the studio blog or vlog would be really, really cool to see. That's something that interests me. I know that doesn't interest everybody, but like that's an opportunity for some great content that could probably do serious numbers. If they manage to get sole ownership of WotC, they could start rebuilding trust with me. That I doubt that'll ever happen. That's pretty unlikely. Heavy hangs the crown, much like an orange wizard hat. Fair. Bringing on third-party creators on official WotC products legitimizes their partnered content for those creators. And I mean, we don't know if it's going to be the same high-profile creators. I'm assuming it probably will be, right? Dungeon Dudes and the like. But maybe not. Maybe this is an opportunity, too, for some lesser-known third-party creators that are also really, really good at their job. They make, like, really great content, but they just don't have the numbers or the eyeballs on their stuff to elevate them to another level, which could be very, very cool. So there's a lot of opportunity here in the process of rebuilding things. Let's see. Will what Ed Greenwood and the people working on Greyhawk this year, will that content come into D&D Beyond? So the Greyhawk stuff, I think, yes. The Ed Greenwood stuff, I think, is going on the DMs Guild. There's a chance it could be on D&D Beyond. It probably should be, but perfect example, you doing a Kickstarter, everyone could be confident what you're putting out is what you want and personally think it's good, but at WotC, there'd be a bit of sus about it. Yeah, fair. Remember the council table thing? They announced at Gen Con. Yeah, I do. I'd like to see people like Goodman Games and Trollord Games get to do stuff. Yeah. The Paleontologist book was fairly surprising. I really like those books. So there's actually been two books. There's the Dr. Drolin's Dictionary of Dinosaurs, which is the one I think that dropped on D&D Beyond today. And I actually am going to be doing probably later this week another live stream covering, talking about that book, because I actually have a code to do a giveaway to get somebody a free copy of that on D&D Beyond. So the team sent one over to me, and I also had done the Professor Primula's Portfolio of Paleontology. That was the secondary book, because there's a mouthful to say. That was a secondary book that went on Kickstarter earlier this year, I think, or maybe late last year. There's so much great Kickstarter stuff I'm seeing after taking a break for a while. Not enough time to play it all. That's the biggest thing, man. I have so as many of you know, right, I'm moving, right? That's not a secret at this point. So I'm in the process of, like, this stuff that you see behind me is still here, but, like, a lot of the other stuff is getting packed up. And, man, when I tell you, when I moved to this house, what is that, 8 years ago now? The amount of D&D and RPG books I had is a fraction of what I have now. Whether that's things that have just been from releases from first-party developers, from things that have been sent to me by people for reviews, from friends, from all these other things. Man, also, just because I feel like I gotta say it. Books are freaking heavy, dude. Holy shit. You know, I would love to just load up a really big tote with books to just move them all at once. But God, it's impossible to lift these things. I've got like 8 freaking boxes, like big, medium-sized moving boxes full of D&D books, and I'm at like maybe half. And it is just a nightmare to move this many books. Holy shit. Yeah. So not across town. I guess, how would I say this? States away is, I guess, how I would say it. A bag of holding, for a book bag of holding, just to store all my books. Dude, oh my God. That's why, like, believe me, you're going to see a bunch more giveaways popping up here on the channel in the next little bit, because I've just got, like, I think I might be doing a yard sale this weekend just to get rid of stuff, because I have so many things. It's just like, and like, I'm ultimately not complaining. I really want to make that very clear, because I do love doing product reviews and checking out all this cool stuff. And there's a lot of cool stuff with that. But like, you just accumulate stuff, and like, it's funny because I feel like I had like a little bit of a dry spell where I wasn't getting stuff. And then, like, now that I'm in the process of like packing stuff up to move, everybody's like, hey, I sent you a thing. And I've just got like packages showing up day after day. And I'm like, I'm trying to move, trying to package things up, and like, oh, here's some of this thing, and here's a couple books, and here's this, and here's that. And it's just like, okay, well, when it rains, it pours, I guess. So yeah. Anyway. Converted Artificer subclass in the Paleontology book is insanely strong. Well, if you're coming to Tennessee, I will definitely let you know. You also want smaller, but yeah, that's the thing, right? Like, the size of it's such a double-edged sword with moving books, right? Because you want a box with handles, right? And you're like, well, I guess I should go with a smaller box, because the bigger box is going to be too heavy to lift, but then I need like hundreds of smaller boxes. It's such a pain in the ass. I wish, like, again, some form of improved book management would be great. I don't know what it is, but right now it's just moving boxes full of books. And like, again, that's not including, like, I'm just talking really at this point, RPG books. Like, I have other books, like, in other bookshelves that are non-RPG books. And those, it's just like, that's the other thing. Those kind of like soft cover paperback books and things of that nature, like, they're usually smaller and they're lighter. RPG books are freaking heavy, dude. They're thick and they're heavy. It's a pain in the ass. Yeah. So I definitely also understand the concept of having digital libraries for things, because it makes things a lot easier when you're trying to, you can bring everything with you and it just takes your phone or a laptop, as opposed to just like stacks of books. Would disseminating a set of official third-party guidelines for subclasses for action economy with benchmarks for dice math level? So that's a fantastic idea. Let me read that again. Would disseminating a set of official third-party guidelines for subclasses for action economy with benchmarks for dice math level and similar rails be a way to encourage more/most DMs to get on board? I think that's the kind of stuff that I keep talking about, like wanting behind the scenes information and like insight into the design process. That's the kind of stuff I think we would love to know, so we could kind of like figure out what's going on. I prefer print PDF on everything. I don't want just PDF. I really don't want walled garden ebooks. Yeah, I get that. I find myself now, if you go back and watch some of my old D&D content, like, I was very much against D&D Beyond. and digital books in general, PDFs. Like I was very much only a physical book person. And I think that also stemmed from like, especially back when 5e launched, there wasn't a lot of digital tool sets for D&D 5e. Like everybody I knew was playing with paper character sheets, which again, as somebody who knows, right, if you've gone and played on something like D&D Beyond or a virtual tabletop where everything's digitized and then you try to go back to paper, like people get lost in their character sheet. They don't know what they've got because they're like, it's hard to keep track of because like they knew where everything was, and like they can see the D&D Beyond character builder in their mind with their eyes closed to know where things are. So, yeah, I was very much a physical only. And now I very much am always give me both, right? Give me the physical book, whether so I can have it on the shelf. And like sometimes I agree, like for content, like the kind of content that I make here, digital is huge, right? Because it gives you guys something to look at rather than me reading a book over here and then just spouting off text to you without you seeing it. But you know, if I'm like really want to study up on something, I'd like to just like sit in a comfy chair and read the book, and I feel like I can absorb it better. Whereas I also feel like I get a lot more into things when I sit and I read the book, as opposed to like when I go to look at it in like a digital tool set or in a PDF. I'm just like looking for piecemeal information, scrolling through to find the thing I'm looking for, and then like I just read that and move on. Whereas when I have the physical book and I'm reading it, like I'm absorbing all of the text and everything on the page and like what came before and what came after and little anecdotes and things. Whereas, you know, like I said, if it's just a PDF, I'm like looking for a piece of information, whether that's to make content around it or just because I'm searching something out and I just grab that and nothing else. I can see a 3.5 character sheet in my head without trying. Agreed. Same. I actually just was in the process of packaging up all of my old character sheets and stuff. So that's all been in one of the many boxes. And also, you know, not for nothing, I have hundreds, if not thousands of D&D minis. That was a whole other thing, right? Like I still haven't packaged up all of my dragons because they are huge and I got to wrap those in bubble wrap. So I've got, you know, hundreds if not thousands of minis to package up and box up and move. So that's a whole other thing. We need standardized guidelines for third-party products. Some of the earliest partnered content was way overpowered, and the Cthulhu spells, for instance. Yeah, I mean, you're right. And you know, the thing is, right, homebrew, you can do whatever you want, and that's kind of what it's always been. And what we've seen with D&D Beyond is they like to try to pick things of a certain caliber to post on D&D Beyond. That's the theory anyway, right? That's why D&D Beyond isn't Steam. Now, they've said that they've, you know, alluded to in the past about trying to become something similar to that. But, like, you know, I feel like the DM's Guild is closer to Steam in a lot of ways, in that, like, you can basically put just about anything out. Your game can be absolute trash and be unfinished and unpolished and not the best, but you can put it out there to some degree. And, like, you could maybe charge for it, maybe nobody will buy it, but you can put it out there. And that's kind of how I feel like about the DM's Guild to some degree. Now, I'm not saying that there's not absolutely banger, fantastic content on the DM's Guild, because there absolutely is. But there's also a lot of content that's just kind of like somebody slapped something together, white page on a black text on a white page, and just slapped it together and threw it out on the DM's Guild. And that's fine too. But that's also why I think D&D Beyond isn't going that route where anybody can publish on there. They want to have like a certain caliber of quality of the content that they officially release. Because remember, not only when somebody puts out, when they pick something like Dr. Drolin's or one of these to put out on D&D Beyond, they also need to build it into the character builder. Because like I could put content out on D&D Beyond, but if it's not if it's not like built with functionality into the character builder, it's basically useless, right? If I can't access that subclass in the character builder, then why do I even have it on there other than just to be able to have it to look at digitally as opposed to having a physical book? So that's also why it's not like content. I mean, they are putting out a lot of third-party content. We should not discount that. But they also have to take the time to code in everything properly so that it works in the character builder, so that it works in the maps, VTT, and all this other stuff. So that's why it's not like you can just upload your own thing. That would be an interesting concept of like having tiers of like maybe there's like I don't know what the split is for how much the creators make when they release something on the DM or on D&D Beyond, like how much WotC gets of that. I don't know. But maybe there could be tiers potentially. But I think that also you could run into a lot of issues that way. Like the concept would be like tier 1 is WotC gets the biggest cut, and then they also do all the coding for you. And like tier 2 would be like they get a smaller cut and you have to do all the coding yourself. But then does WotC want you mucking around with their code? Probably not. So I don't really know if that ends up working out anyway. I'm not planning on ever moving again. Yeah. Well, I wasn't planning on moving either. So, all right. Let's get back to the news we were going to take a look at. So, we have some news about the Baldur's Gate TV series. The Baldur's Gate TV series will not start production until The Last of Us production concludes, right? It's the same showrunner who's doing The Last of Us is doing the Baldur's Gate TV series. So The Last of Us Season 3 airs next year in 2027. I don't know if that's the last season. Let's see. Yeah, Craig Mazin finishes The Last of Us. So in an interview, he's deep into the season 3 of The Last of Us, but Baldur's Gate has something he brought to us. He's very passionate about it. He's thinking about it. Filming for The Last of Us final season began in March of this year. The show will air in 2027. So he's going to serve as the showrunner for the Baldur's Gate show, and ex-WotC staffer Chris Perkins will act as a consultant. Larian Studios, which made the video game, is not involved at this time, which is something we've lamented a bunch. So it's unfortunate. We'll have to see what happens. The show will be a sequel to the video game rather than an adaptation of it, and will feature new characters alongside those from the game. So I don't even know if this is necessary. I don't even know if they should do this. This, I feel like, is one of these things where, like, hey, remember this thing that was really popular, and it is still very popular? We need to capitalize on that. But we're not even going to start production on this show until sometime in 2027, presumably. Which means, and again, not for nothing, Baldur's Gate 3 came out in 2023. So you're not even going to start production on this until 4 years after the game came out. Now, I'm not saying Baldur's Gate 3 doesn't have staying power, because it absolutely does. I love that game. I'm looking to do another playthrough, probably live streamed sometime soon. But this is like, we're taking a long time here. We're doing something good. We're not trying to readapt it. So the good news is, if we're not readapting the game into just trying to take the what was the story and turn it into a live action version of that, which is a bad idea, because the best part about that game is you can make your own decisions. Excuse me, the way you go about things. But changing it to be a sequel means that, like, hey, we can still have some of the characters that you like, but we can kind of tell our own story, and it doesn't interfere with the story that's already been established. Now, that being said, the big question on your mind, I'm sure, and mine as well, is, well, what happened in the playthrough of the game that this story is based on? Because as you know, what events happened, right? Did Astarion ascend? Did he not? Did you free, the Gith Prince? Did you not? All these different things, right? Who did you kill? Who did you not kill? Whatever, all that stuff. That's going to impact what the sequel show is going to be about. So we kind of need to know what was the playthrough that happened that led up to the end of the Baldur's Gate 3 video game that this show was then going to be, springboarding off of. I assume just because Astarion and Karlach are probably two of the most popular characters, I think I could say with with relative certainty. So I assume those characters still exist. They didn't die or one thing or another in the course of this, so you can still use those characters. But like, if Karlach's stuck in hell, is that gonna be the whole storyline for Karlach? She's stuck in hell? I don't know. Is Gale a god? Is he dead? What's going on there? You're gonna have to make canon choices for what happened in the game to be able to tell the story. I mean, if they're working on a show already, they're working on a show. Hard to help, but low-key, this might be good. Yeah, I mean, I think, like I said, the biggest smart decision they made is to make it a sequel to the game and not a retelling of the story of the game, because you're treading into territory that we don't know what's coming. That's the other thing, right? This isn't like Game of Thrones, at least the beginning of Game of Thrones, where if you read the books, you knew what was going to happen at the Red Wedding if you read the Game of Thrones books before the series came out. Now, obviously, we know that kind of went off the rails when they ran out of book content, but that's kind of a thing where, like, hey, if we're all going to sit down and watch the Baldur's Gate 3 show, those of us who've played aren't going to be like, oh, I know what's going to happen because I played the game. And, like, what your friends don't know. We can all sit down as viewers of this new show and hopefully, if it's done well, enjoy it and experience it together as things are happening and be able to enjoy that because, like, we're going to see what's happening for the first time together, assuming it's done well. Some of the BG3 guys are in the Faerun books. Yeah, so either way. All right. This is something people were talking about a little bit ago about the Forgotten Realms Guide to the Dale Lands. So this is Ed Greenwood's first source book in his Realms Bound series. So the Guide to the Dale Lands is the first of 4 books, a regional source book for both DMs and players. It will be released on the DMs Guild. The book has been delayed from Q1 of this year to Q2 of this year, hoping to release in June. And here's the front cover of Forgotten Realms, Ed Greenwood Presents Guide to the Dale Lands. This will be released again on the DMs Guild. I will be covering this when it comes out. And here's what it's going to have. A regional source book for both players and DMs, geared towards social encounters. It covers not just inns, but also NPCs, mini games, and social occasions such as festivals and tournaments. A collection of dangerous locations to serve as fodder for adventurers, and an anthology of adventures for levels 1 to 12. So again, this is going to be one of 4 books in Ed Greenwood's Realms Bound series, which are going to be Guide to the Dale Lands, Insights of the Dale Lands, Delves of the Dale Lands, and Adventures in the Dale Lands. Or I guess this is all going to be this one book here that's broken up into the 4 sub areas. Each source book focuses on fleshing out the Dale Lands region with planned releases in quarterly installments. They are those 4 that we just mentioned. So I guess that actually was mistaken because it said a guide to the Dale Lands. Okay, these are the books in the series. My mistake. Those are the 4 books. There's also an official site for it over on Mythmakers, all published on the Dale Lands. We can see a little bit of the artwork here. Again, to the point some of you guys have made, this does feel like something you might want to release on, I guess it depends, right? Do they feel the content is of quality that it should be released? I don't know. We'll have to see what it looks like, but I'll definitely be taking a look at it for sure as, Ed Greenwood is the father of the Forgotten Realms, and if he's making new source books, in theory, just like with Keith Baker making Exploring Eberron for Eberron, this is the guy who created this whole campaign world, right? This campaign setting. His stuff should be considered like of the highest quality within that, outside of stuff Wizards of the Coast is producing, because they technically own the canon, but he created the world, so his stuff kind of feels like it's a little bit more genuine. Didn't Q2 just start? Yeah, it did. So the book's been delayed from Q1 to Q2, so they're hoping to release it in June, which looks like it'll be the end of Q2. Um, all right. So that is that piece. The idea is yes, execution. Yeah, fair. Understood. Then this is a little bit here. It says Melf's Guide to Greyhawk is called The Shieldlands. Well, it's actually not. I think that's actually been changed. Um, as actor Vince Vaughn gifts cover artwork to Luke Gygax. Luke Gygax said on social media earlier that the full title of the upcoming Greyhawk book from WotC is Melf's Guide to Greyhawk, The Shieldlands. I think there's an updated article we're going to take a look at that might change that, but this beautiful rendering of Melf by Jeff Easley arrived at my home safely. This is the only painting of Melf that reflects my vision of him as played by me in my father's Greyhawk campaign. This will be the cover to the Melf's Guide to Greyhawk, The Shieldlands. I'm also thankful to Vince Vaughn for bidding on this at the GaryCon charity auction and gifted it to me. He's incredibly generous and a thoughtful friend. I'm taking this to get it framed, and then it will go on the wall near my other two Easley originals. Here's the artwork here, you can see, of Melf himself. So the art was purchased by a fan at GaryCon, winning an auction with a bid of $5,000, and appears that the fan in question was Vince Vaughn. Gifted the piece to Luke. The auction was a charity auction benefiting the Children's Hospital of Wisconsin. Okay, we're gonna actually use this as an opportunity to go pull in all the other Dungeons and Dragons stuff, but we also have the title of the new Dragonlance novel that's releasing from Weiss and Hickman. So, from Penguin Random House and authors Margaret Weiss and Tracy Hickman come a new Dragonlance novel focused on the early friendship between the red-robed wizard Magius and the famed Salamic Knight Huma, two characters who have featured heavily in Dragonlance lore, and notably in Weiss and Hickman's recent Dragonlance Destinies novel trilogy, which features some of the heroes of the Lance traveling back in time to an earlier dragon war. It is set to release on August 4th of this year as a 352-page hardcover and forms the first in a new trilogy set in the world of Krynn. And here is the artwork of the front cover here of War Wizard. So, here's a little bit more. Here's the full cover art here to showcase all that. So yeah, we got a new Dragonlance trilogy starting with the first book launching here in August. So, let's see. So, or hypothetically, were I to happen to have the opportunity to ask Luke questions in a live stream, what would you like me to ask? Well, that's a good question, right? Let's see what other, before we go too far, let's see if we have, so there's some other news here we can grab. Well, I guess kind of just touching back on some of the things that we had talked about here earlier, the questions I would say is, to what degree, we obviously know Wizards of the Coast has made a couple points, Dan Ayub specifically, about apologizing to, Luke and the Gygax family and sort of trying to mend the rift between Wizards of the Coast and him and the Gygax family. My question, probably the biggest one, is we know Melf's Guide to Greyhawk is going to be developed in conjunction with Wizards of the Coast. The real question is going to be how much input are they having? Like, is this kind of to that question I asked earlier? Are you developing this book, and would you have been developing this book by itself without Wizards of the Coast's intervention, and you were going to put this out anyway? And they were like, hey, that looks really cool, let's partner together on it? Or were they like, hey, we'd like to work with you on something. Do you have any ideas for content? And then this is what he came up with. I think those would be kind of the cool ideas to go with, because like a lot of people want to know, is this just, they were like, hey, we want to make a Melf book. You're Melf. What do you got for us? Or, hey, are you working on, oh, we hear you're working on something. We think that's cool. Let's work together to publish it through our avenues and then make it kind of an official product. Those would be the questions I'd have, is like how much, like any kind of, almost if you treat it like a Hollywood project, right? Like how much meddling are they going to have with this? Are you kind of giving your own autonomy to work on it and then just have to provide updates and they come back with edits? So, Yeah, I'd say that's probably my biggest questions at the moment. Um, yeah, the amount of creative control that him and his team have on this would be the big question for me. Let's see. We have a couple other bits of news here to go over. There's going to be a 4-part Ravenloft comic book series. The first issue is going to launch on August 19th from Dark Horse Comics. It says Ravenloft is falling apart and nobody knows why. Fortunately, Hunter Esmeralda Devanir is on the case. She's searching the frozen wastelands of Lemordia for an undead creature that may hold the key to Ravenloft's fate. But when Dark Lord Victor Mordenheim catches wind of her presence, Ez is suddenly the one being hunted. The perfect companion to Ravenloft: The Horrors Within, the new TRPG book for Wizards of the Coast. Dark Horse Comics and Hasbro's Wizards of the Coast division present Dungeons & Dragons Ravenloft, a new 4-issue genre-bending comic series that will unite Rudolph Van Richten's proteges from across the horrifying domains of dread. The miniseries is written by Bram Stoker Award-winning author Amy Chu, with line art by Ariella Cristantina, colors by Arif Prianto, and letters by Haley Rose Lyon. Issue number 1 will feature cover art by, I think it's Guillem March, Riley Rosmo, Francesca Francavella, Todor Ristroff, and Angela Wu. So here we have some of the artwork here showing the front cover of this book. So a 4-issue miniseries of Ravenloft, which are a bunch of different cool art styles to take a look at. So that'll be pretty interesting. I'm a big comic guy, although be honest, I haven't purchased comics in a while. I was really, really heavily into them. Probably, I was when I was younger, and then, God, was it maybe 10 years ago? I got like real deep into comics again, right around the launch of the new Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles IDW line. Like when issue number 1 came out, I got like heavy into comics, where I was buying like 6 comics a week, every week, kind of thing, or at least every month. So I'll probably be picking up this 4-issue run to just check it out, because I always love additional D&D media, and novels and things are great, but I feel like we don't get a lot of comic books. We had in the past gotten some graphic novels and comic books over the years, so it's always cool to see more of that. Death Angel Shadow, I wish you the best of luck and hope it works out. So again, to contradict what I had just mentioned, as I thought I had seen something on this, Greyhawk book is not Shieldlands, but Borderlands of Ayuz, according to team member. According to Jay Scott, the book is actually called Melf's Guide to Greyhawk, The Borderlands of Ayuz. Last week, Luke Gygax referred to it as Melf's Guide to Greyhawk Shieldlands, but according to Jay Scott, who is on the writing team, the book is actually called Melf's Guide to Greyhawk, The Borderlands of Ayuz. So there you go. Possibly more importantly, Scott also refers to the book as Book 1, hinting that a series of books is on the table. Additionally, he refers to the, quote, the old gritty Greyhawk while being written in current 5.5 2024 rule set. Finally, he notes that He notes that no WotC personnel are involved with the project, although the book is official Greyhawk D&D WotC. Well, my question may have been answered here in this. So, what does this make you all think? How about this line? No WotC personnel are involved with this project, though this book is a, quote, official Greyhawk D&D WotC. Could this be the answer to the question we had from earlier? I don't know. But that is pretty promising. So that would be, to kind of maybe piggyback off of that. I guess the question would be, we've heard this now, so you can use this as your line if you're going to have this interview, right? He notes that no WotC personnel are involved with the project, although this book is official Greyhawk D&D WotC. What does that mean? Is this just so that, again, to that question, right? They were going to make this regardless, and then WotC said, "Hey, let's publish it for you." He also mentioned that the team was small, including Stephen Radney McFarland and Les Oblivion Seeker Reno. The title Borderlands of IUs refers to an evil demigod in the Greyhawk setting. He lives on Earth itself, the world of Greyhawk, ruling an empire, and is the son of Grass, one of the demon lords of the Abyss, and Igwilv, a human witch, which would be Tasha to other people who don't know. The Shield Lands, by contrast, refer to a number of provinces, many of which are ruled by IUs, with the exception of the new Shield Lands, which seeks to reclaim the areas lost to IUs. So, there you have it. I think that covers, I think that's all of the news that I had on my docket here. Is Melf a WotC IP? That's a good question. I don't know the answer to that. Technically, I think he is, because you can have things like Melf's Acid Arrow as a spell, which technically makes him just like Mordenkainen and all the others, right? That technically makes them. Well, I think they purchased all those, unless there was something that happened where, Luke retained rights to his character, but I doubt it. I assume when TSR sold everything to WotC, they kind of got the rights to all that stuff immediately. So, welcome in, Raiders. But yeah, it does sound positive. I'm hearing a lot of positive things behind the scenes, and I was a big skeptic about the apology and the motives behind it. Yeah, I mean, take it with a grain of salt. Take all this with a grain of salt, because you never know. Corporate do corporate things, right? But it does genuinely seem that Dan is, and the Wizards of the Coast team are working to do things. Like, I mean, I can speak from personal, to some degree, right? From personal experience. They didn't have to reach out to me to do the state of the game, but they did. And like, that's a cool little feather in my cap that I hosted the first official D&D state of the game. That's kind of cool. Like, they could have just done that in studio. They didn't need to go to a content creator to have me be the mediator, but they did. And I really appreciate that. So like little things like that to try to show like community outreach and whatnot, I think is a pretty good idea. So, I don't know. I think there are some things obviously they could do to improve their, improve their standing a little bit more. I think, so I'll tell you my couple of things I think could go a long way to really helping solidify what little, like I said, they've done a lot of good things. They didn't have to put 5e in Creative Commons. They didn't have to put 5.5e in Creative Commons, but they did both. If you were to put the Artificer base class for both 5e and 5.5e into Creative Commons, that would be huge. I understand they probably won't do that, but maybe this thing with Ravenloft kind of opens the door for that, right? Now, again, technically you're buying the Ravenloft book for the subclasses, but you're being gifted the base class digitally for free. So like maybe this is a stepping stone, opening a door, as it were. But I think putting the base Artificer class in Creative Commons for both 5e and 5.5e, that would be a big win. I think a lot of people would be very, very happy about that. That would be a big shock. And then again, if the Scion ends up being a thing down the road, eventually at some point putting the Scion in Creative Commons as well would be huge. I think putting the older editions into Creative Commons, right? Specifically, everything from 3.0 and 3.5 that was part of the original open game license. Obviously, it's going to take time because they need to sort of scrub that to make sure they're not accidentally giving away content that they can't give away, like, or they don't want to. For example, I've brought this up a bunch of times in the Creative Commons that we have for 5e. They technically have put Strahd von Zarovich in Creative Commons. The name Strahd von Zarovich is in Creative Commons because they basically just took what we had from the SRD and dumped it into Creative Commons, which means the name Strahd von Zarovich is in there. I presume they don't want to do something like that or make sure something accidentally like that doesn't happen again. So scrubbing that, and then I would say specifically releasing the 3.0 and the 3.5, everything that was in the OGL or those SRDs, those going into Creative Commons would be a big one because that technically puts, they can't rescind that. That also covers Pathfinder First Edition as well because that was kind of built off of that. But then if you're going that far and you can do it and it's not like a crazy ask, I'd put 4th edition, 2nd edition, 1st edition, put every, you really want to tell us that D&D is your game and you play the way you like, blah, 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 right? Take every SRD or make an SRD for every edition of the game. And at the most basic of levels, release that into Creative Commons so that no matter what edition of D&D you choose to play, the base rules of it are free for you to utilize online. And it would also then allow you to create content. If you really desperately wanted to go back and make 2nd edition content and release it on Kickstarter, if there was a 2nd edition SRD, you'd be able to do that as long as you fell within the parameters of that SRD. So those would be the two big things that I would do, or the couple of big things that I would do to really try to win the fans over again, would be putting the Artificer into Creative Commons, just the base class. And obviously you have to give one subclass for the purposes of understanding how the structure works. But Artificer base class into Creative Commons and every older edition's SRD into Creative Commons. I think that would shock people if WotC turned around and did that. I mean, I've been blown away with the amount of updates they've been able to put out on D&D Beyond and D&D Beyond maps in the time with the small teams they have working on that. These, like, that's just been a pleasant surprise. Every couple of weeks we get a new update for D&D Beyond or D&D Beyond maps. Getting like a random Tuesday drop that this is happening would be absolutely wild. Dude, can we talk? Okay. Sorry, I need to highlight this comment because it's a thing. Let's see. I have mad respect for you big channel guys who are staying true. I'm so tired of the YouTube drama channels that post a new D&D is over there killing the game once a week. It gets tiring after a while and the dungeon tube is dead. I'm quitting. Dude, man, there are so many, like, I get sick and tired. Every time I turn around, somebody's quitting, somebody's leaving D&D YouTube or this or that. The game is dying. They're ruining this. This is changing, blah, 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 blah. Like, I just want to play the game, man. I just want to enjoy playing D&D and not have to feel bad about it. And people always seem to want to just make a big deal out of nothing. No, I'm pretty sure if we were to go look, let's go look. The great thing about D&D is you can play the way you want. That is the best thing about D&D. I agree. Let's go ahead. Was there an update in the changelog? Somebody said something. There's a bunch of bug fixes. Oh, yes, I see. We'll go ahead and take a look at that here in just a second. Yeah, well, that's a good thing to take a look at. But let's go ahead and pull up the SRD real quick. D&D 5e SRD. Did you click the button everybody commented about the horror classes? Yes, I did. I covered it in a short form video that I linked back to that, but I did. And we covered that at the start of this stream as well. But yes, thankfully, that was covered. Okay, this is not at all. What is this bullshit? Here we go. SRD 5.1 in Creative Commons. Here it is. Let's just go ahead and search. Yep. Count Strad von Zarovich, right here. So it says right here for Divine Sense, the type of being, celestial, fiend, undead, or any whose presence you sense, but not its identity. The vampire, Count Strad von Zarovich, for instance, you would know there's a vampire, but not it's him. But yes, the vampire Count Strad von Zarovich is right here in the Creative Commons in full name, right? So it is in here. Do I have a physical copy of the Draconomicon? Yes. Which one, I guess, is the question. You mean the 3.5 one or the one that was released on the DMs Guild that somebody did as like an update to it? Because I have both of those. For anyone considering the new D&D survey, it's long as heck, so set aside a good chunk of time. Do you mean the Unearthed? I do have the 3.5 Unearthed Draconomicon. Carefree RPG, is this the Unearthed Arcana survey? Or is there another survey that I missed that had come out recently? Any rumors on future MTG tie-ins like Strixhaven? Think one will ever be popular? I think Strixhaven, unfortunately, was like the weaker of all of them, unfortunately. Let's see. Yeah, Carefree RPG. Can you comment on which survey you're talking about? I just want to make sure I'm aware because I usually do those videos, so I want to make sure I'm not missing something. Is the survey option even available for this yet? Oh, this one right here. Is this the survey we're talking about? If that's the case, then that'll be on here in a little bit, but Strixhaven had a couple of OP gems. Yeah, well, Silvery Barbs was the big thing, right? Oh, D&D Beyond sent out an email. Okay. Let's see. I have this email. I'll make sure this isn't one that I've already done. Let me see. I feel like I filled out a survey not that long ago, but let me go ahead and look here at D&D Beyond real quick. Let's see if we can see if there's a survey email here. I'm not. Nope. I'm not seeing something about a new survey. Doesn't mean, maybe I already filled it out. All right. Well, anyway, let's get back to the changelog. What's up, Necro? How you doing? So you mentioned, it was mentioned here that there are several updates. So moved custom upload sticker reveals and token art from next to now. It says maps improvements. Rebuilt map browser to increase size of modal, increased how many maps we show you on a screen, show previews of the map when clicking on a thumbnail, enabled filtering to find what you're looking for better. Improvement, various backend improvements that have massively improved in game log stability. Love that. Added new loading screen messages for players. Improvement, many miscellaneous dice rolling improvements. Okay, that's good. All right, I'll take a look carefree and see if I can find that email. Various bug fixes, fixing broken links, blah, blah, blah. Many miscellaneous dice bug fixes. Character tools. Character sheets now available in maps that we know. Quick Builder now auto-equips inventory for new characters. Improvement on tablet and mobile. The swiping functionality has been improved and the swipeable area is larger, even when there's less content in the view and it doesn't fill the whole page. Great. Remove title on the left, right arrow, SVGs to the sidebar to prevent unnecessary browser tooltips from showing up. Remove the game log from read-only character sheets. Remove the beginner checkbox from the standard builder option in the character builder. Help text is still available. Improvement, disable the character creator button when the user has reached the maximum character limit. Now that's kind of a nice little quality of life there. Content, Ravenloft, The Horrors Within, pre-order, Griffin's Saddlebag, Book 1 for 5.5, and Dr. Droland's Dictionary of Dinosaurs. Monster skills with a negative modifier no longer include a plus sign in front of them. 5.5e monsters more closely follow monster manual formatting. Instead of a dash for no languages, it says none. Passive perception has a semicolon. Okay, just, generic fixes. I need a whole bunch of bug fixes here. A whole bunch of them. Wow. Oh, holy cow, yeah. Website improvements. Improved styling on mobile when user menu is open. Improvement adds subscribe button to the new navigation on mobile. Improved alignment of bookmark icon for shorter titles and list of favorited books. Show recently viewed and favorited sources in library dropdown. Clarified arrow when reaching maximum favorited sources. And update the benefits page on mobile to be consistent with the web version. Okay, so lots of little back end adjustments here that we're really getting to see. Let's go ahead and launch a TT, a VTT real quick. So none of these are being listed here in the change log. They're kind of just back end things that are covered, but I did say there were some dice rolling improvements. See, look at this. I don't think we had this before. This 3D dice settings, share dice, see other people's rolls, see only your rolls, disable 3D dice so you can just turn them off. Sound effect volume up and down, whether you want particle effects on or off, post-processing, and the quality of those shadows. I'm not sure that this was always there. Maybe it wasn't. I just missed it, but yeah, I mean, they are pretty snappy. And the fact that they've improved the game log stability in general is a nice little feature as well. So, I said they've changed the maps browser. Oh, they did. Yeah, this used to just show one map in the middle. And now they show 2 columns of maps, which is nice. They said if you click on it, oh, wow, this is beautiful. If you click on the map, you get a preview of what the map actually looks like. Well, that is nice. Get yourself a little quality here to show, if you're trying to pick out whether or not you want to use it. And obviously the cool thing is, and this, basic maps, uploaded maps, quick play maps, and then you have access to all your map packs as well. Source books, adventures. I like this new menu, and I like that I get to basically see all of the maps clearly, and I can obviously get the little previews if I need it. Nice little quality of life adjustments here. Really, really appreciate that. So again, if we click it, does it show that it doesn't show the tokens, does it? No, I don't think so. Let's see. We have GM versions of quick play maps on here. These are all just player versions, I think. But yeah, this is a lot of little quality of life options here, which I really like to see. This is a very nice little breakdown to kind of give you some options, right? If you really want to have that sound play or what have you. I think that's good. So, yeah, this is nice. So, well, that covers the majority of the news that I had that I wanted to discuss here. Um, we obviously do, as I mentioned here, have the survey for the newly released villainous options on Earth Arcana. So filling that out, we'll do that in the near future as well. We do now also have, as mentioned, a variety of new third-party stuff, which I do need to go in, and I have a lot to cover. We did cover exploring Eberron in full. We did cover the pugilist in full. But we have a lot of other cool things to check out. Again, we have Dr. Drolin's, which is new. We have a bunch of options in here. And again, I will be doing a separate kind of either series of videos or a live stream or something. Probably a live stream about it, because I do have, like I said, an extra code to just give somebody a copy of this for free on D&D Beyond. So we'll be doing that in the near future. I have a handful of other streams I'd like to do as well. Super Adventure Festival just launched in Guild Wars 2, so we'll be doing that. I've been talking about wanting to do another playthrough of Baldur's Gate 3. That's on the list. I might also do, depending, because I still have a lot of shit to pack up. We might end up doing like a packing, like IRL live stream where I just kind of set up the camera in the room where I need to pack a bunch of stuff up and just chat with you guys while I pack up all of my D&D minis, because I got to get that done as well. So, I don't know. Friday is also season 7.5 for Marvel Rivals, so we might do a Marvel Rival stream. But yeah, I do plan to do more live streams. I think YouTube is incentivizing me to do 16 live streams between now and the end of June. So I will be doing my best to keep that as a possibility with multiple live streams throughout. But yeah, so again, the idea is also to not have these be so impromptu, to give you guys plenty of time to know when the live streams are going to happen. And like really give you that longevity to know like, hey, I'm going to live stream at this point. Also, I don't know with certainty. Let me see if we have an answer on this. I don't know. So today is the 15th of April, or tomorrow, because I haven't gone to bed yet, so it still feels like it's tomorrow. We might be playing my game here on the channel. So we have a couple, not many, but a very few minimal episodes left of Phandelver and Below before we can completely finish that campaign. We're like 1 to 2 episodes away from finishing it, and we just haven't played in like 3 months. So the idea would be to hopefully get to play maybe the penultimate episode later tonight, although I don't know. We've had a lot of people traveling and doing other things, so we've had no opportunities to really sit down and play. So we might be off this week as well. I don't know. I'll have to let you know. I'll try to post about it on socials early enough to let people know that that's a thing. But first, in my opinion, if Wizards wanted to throw millions at making D&D digital, they should have put it in Tilt 5, then it would have been a TTRPG in digital. Yeah. All right. Well, I will be on Captain Robert's channel on Thursday. Looks like we're going to be streaming another episode of Vecna Eve of Ruin, and we're getting close to the end of that campaign as well. And then I think we might have some cool startups for some other new stuff, non-D&D content, no less, in the near future. And then I also have to start to think about what my, after my Phandelver and Below campaign closes out and finally finishes, what my next campaign will be that runs after that. and who I'm going to get into that campaign and what the plan's going to be for that and all that good stuff. So anyway, a lot of stuff going on. I'm in a lot of turmoil at the moment as I am navigating a variety of different things. um, yeah. So we're in an interesting scenario where, like I said, the move is underway, but it's like got to pack up a bunch of stuff, got to ship a bunch of stuff to the new house, but then also got to go through the process of getting this house ready to be put on the market, which is also, if you've ever done that, is an absolute nightmare. Had to interview a bunch of realtors. Last time I moved, I had a 1-year-old, so it was a lot easier. Now I have a 9-year-old and a 6-year-old, so it's a lot harder to do. And then that's just a bunch of stuff, and then like getting the house ready and clear for be ready for inspections and all this other stuff. Oh, it's gonna be. I'll tell you, Starfinder 2E. We're gonna be playing. I'm gonna be at some point over on Robert's channel. We're gonna be doing Starfinder 2E. I really had a lot of blast playing some Pathfinder 2E stuff. I was on a couple other channels playing that, and then those kind of just dried up out of nowhere, like campaigns do. So we are looking to dive into some Starfinder 2E. So that would be very cool. I'm very excited to give that a go. But yeah, I guess I just had Dr. Drolan's here on the screen for no reason, but yeah, this I think was an artificer, but they had to change it to a fighter as the artificer base class isn't, available. So yeah. Anyway, I've ran a series of Shadow Darks. Shadow Dark is great. I do love Shadow Dark. I've had a lot of fun. I've only played one actual session of Shadow Dark, but it was awesome. Yeah, we got a lot of big changes happening here on this side, which was not at all what I had planned at the beginning of the year. Things are very different now than they were. Have I dealt with the newest GURPS? No, I have not. I haven't even looked at it, if I'm being honest. I also would love to run some Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and Other Strangeness 2nd edition, since I have all those books from that Kickstarter, which was just an absolute banger of a Kickstarter. And I love that system, even though it's Palladium and it's wonky as hell. Especially because they updated basically all of my favorite adventures were updated, right? The big one would be my personal favorite out of a lot of those is Truckin' Turtles into Turtles Go Hollywood. And both of those got updated into the 2nd edition. So I would very much love to run Truckin' Turtles into Turtles Go Hollywood on stream, which I think would be a lot of fun. But it is still a D20 system, but it's got Palladium funkiness. So I'd very much like to do that, but I don't know. That's a different group, I think. I had to find a group that'd be willing to do that. I also have to find time to run these games, which is the trick, right? With all the other games that I'm committed to on other channels and things. When I say other channels, let's be honest, I really just mean Robert's channel. But, I got to find time to run these games. But hopefully some of that will be coming more available in the near future. There's some realty people that specialize in selling yours at the same time as buying. So, I mean, new house is already purchased. So, it's not we bought that house, not contingent on selling this house. So, ideally, we get this house under contract very quickly, ideally. So, we'll see what that looks like. But, how do you feel about the new Ravenloft bundle? Personally, as someone who owns the Artificer from Eberron and the Dampier from Starians, I feel like there should be some kind of discount. Well, so here's what I'll say. The bundle is not what you need to necessarily like. Well, you don't need to even get the bundle, right? If you get the $39 digital only Ravenloft, you're still gonna get the Dampier and you're still gonna get uh the Artificer base class. Remember, most people, now maybe, or I don't really know what the breakdown is, but the only way to get the Dampier into 5.5e is to either have bought the ultimate bundle for the Forgotten Realms and gotten it sort of included, or to buy it, Astarian's Book of Hungers, separately for $15. So if people only want to buy the physical book or the digital book, this is a way for them to get that without having to do it. Whereas Astarian's Book of Hungers was sort of like a standalone. I understand your concept of it being a discount, and I think if a la carte still existed on D&D Beyond, then that would be an option, and that would be something people would do, or that like would have been done for you on the back end, as it would have discounted it, since that that's basically what a la carte used to allow. Is if you had purchased some aspects of a book and wanted to buy the full book, you could just do that. But they kind of did away with that. So, are you still planning on making a home renovation channel? I am. I actually have started it. The channel exists. There's no content on it, but I actually have started filming content. So I have to edit it all together, but I started to film the intro, and I'm working on, there's a couple of projects I need to do in this house before I do them in the new house. So like there's things I need to do here to get stuff fixed up and ready for for putting this house on the market. So I'm actually using that as an opportunity to film some of that stuff to basically get content on the channel. So I started, I need to just sit down and like finish filming the intro video. Like I filmed stuff at the new house. I just need to cut it together with like the rest of the stuff and then start the projects here. I started filming stuff down at the new house. I was down there for like a couple of days. I replaced 2 toilets, so that's like simple home renovation stuff, but I filmed on, there was actually quite a bit of interesting issues that I ran into in the process of removing the old toilets. So I filmed that. So I will eventually edit that into content. So yeah, I mean, I've got a lot of work cut out for me at this new house, including building 2 massive rooms in the attic, right? I don't currently have an office like this office that you see here. I don't have this in the new house. I'm going to be building that from the ground up. So I didn't film anything when I did this one. I took pictures and stuff, but like most of you who don't know, if you weren't around when this was happening, I used to film on the other side of this wall, out sort of in like the main open area. And here I built this. This is like a soundproof. I built this room. It's soundproof. I wired it up all properly, right? So we did all sorts of crazy soundproofing techniques to make this room soundproof. And I'm going to be doing that obviously in the new house, but like, I built all the stuff, the shelving and everything that you see behind me over here. But in the new house, we're going to get to design that yet again from the ground up. So we're going to get to go through the process of like, okay, but I'll be documenting it in full in a home renovation style. So yeah, we'll get to go through the design process and like figure out what the background is going to be. We already talked about how many books I have. I might try to build bookshelves into this space as well, like in the new house. And there's a lot of room where I'm building all this stuff. I've only ever done like basement construction. I've never done attic construction. So this will be an interesting, different change for me. Not like a huge deal in the grand scheme of things, but this will be converting an attic as opposed to adding rooms to a basement. And there's a big, massive area. So like, I'll be upfront with you and honest with you. I have a really cool like I have a D&D room, and you guys have seen it if you've watched any of the older content that was, on the channel here when I used to stream D&D like every single week. I have a D&D room where I built a gaming table and I set it all up like that, and I built that room out. And in actually a pretty, when you the grand scheme of things, kind of sad and unfortunate series of events, I haven't really played or used that room at all in like over a year. It's just sat empty, and it's just been like I've just been piling shit up in there, um, which is kind of a bummer. But I'm gonna so like part of me was like, do I even need a space like that in the new house? Because like I had a game that I played consistently for like 8 years, and then it's like, well, I'm moving to a new house. I don't like know anybody where I'm moving. Do I need to have a game room? And then I was like, screw it. I have the space. Let's build out and make a badass game room. We'll make it soundproof and designed up and done up all well to have like, if we're going to do recordings or anything's in there. And I was like, why don't we do one of the things where we make it look like a tavern? That'd be kind of fun. And one of the things that I had was like big shelves in the back with all of my minis on them. And I was like, that's great. But I was like, that doesn't really look like a tavern. And I was like, oh, what if I build like sliding doors, so like you can have it so it slides so it looks like it's all built out like a tavern, and then if you want to get a D&D mini, you can just slide a panel out of the way and like take the minis off. It also protects the minis from dust and stuff. That would be a cool thing. And then like honestly, I have so many different crafting things, 3D printers, laser engravers, that I might build another area up there also into sort of just like a 3D print farm / little craft workshop area as well. So I've got a lot of stuff to build, and that's just for me. That's not including the general home renovations for the house, like redoing all the floors on both floors, completely gutting the kitchen and redoing the kitchen from the ground up, and all that kind of stuff. So these are all things that I'm going to do, which will all be fully documented on said home improvement channel. So, yeah, they haven't done a la carte in a while on D&D Beyond. Actually, I wonder if I look at my YouTube, can I see, if I go and look, can I see when they got rid of a la carte? I wonder. Let's do a quick look. Nope, I don't. I might have had something, but I don't know when it went away, but it went away a while ago. I've thought about Ranger, how I would have made it for 5.5e. I would have actually nerfed Hunter's Mark and made it non-concentration utility spell. I mean, like we have examples for Hunter's Mark, or like for other like things where they're like, oh, it's just not, tweak the way the spell works, and it works uniquely. I think you could just make it not concentration. And I mean, honestly, we've had 17 episodes of a playtest of my version and my fix of the Ranger on Captain Robert's channel. Feisty was playing a Ted Ranger. This is the really technical name we've used. And he's played it for 17 sessions from level, what are we at? 5 to 9, I think, 5 to 10, something like that. So he's played that, and he's had a pretty good time, and I think it's been able to hold its own in the grand scheme of things. So that gives me a lot more playtest than I typically have with my homebrew stuff. So we might try to spin that up into something specific. I want a tavern themed gaming area in my studio, office, workshop, isolate. Yeah, totally get that. Let's see. The beeswax springs on toilets always reminds me of how they plugged holes with cotton strips on wooden ships. Yeah, it is kind of wild to think that in all the time that plumbing has existed that wax rings is still the way we do that. I mean, there's non-wax alternatives, but like even still. Biggest problem is lack of electrical. Yeah, so I don't have any problem running electric and doing all that kind of stuff. I mean, obviously, if you're limited in your panel or you're, not comfortable around that kind of stuff, I totally get it. But like, I mean, I don't know. I have no issues doing just about anything in the house. So I've never worked with a crawl space before, so that'll be something new as well. I mean, again, it all sort of works, the same way. It's just whether you're in a basement or in a crawl space. I would have preferred a basement if that would have been an option, but it just wasn't. Oh, I will this home reno channel is going to be like, I'm going to go in depth on all this stuff. So you'll get all that. So no worries there. And Leprechaun, I see. Oh, and hey, Chungy, I see you joined up there. And Leprechaun, I see you said, I want to see a wizard home improvement channel, preferably done by one of the Harple families. Well, that would be wild. And I don't think that would go over very well given their history. Although it's never come up in any of the episodes, but Theodore the Orange spent a lot of time with the Harple families, actually. That's part of his backstory. He spent, I think, a year studying with the Harple family at one point. I need to put a sub panel down here, I think. My other hobby can have accessory. Yeah. I mean, actually, what's one of the nice benefits of this house is I have a 100 amp sub panel down here in the basement. So it's made it extremely easy for the purposes of running anything, is I can just run right over to that sub panel, which has just been absolutely choice. I thought I would do the same thing for this new house, like add a sub panel in the attic. And then, that way I could just like run all the wires into the sub panel. And then at some point, just tie the 100 amp sub panel into the main panel and call it a day. But I'm pretty sure this house has 400 amp service and like 5 panels. So I'm not adding another one. There's enough there that I can tee into stuff that I should be okay. Yeah, I mean, yeah. I imagine tool time with a Harple would pretty much go very similar to home improvement in general. Yeah, this house is nutty. This new house. I mean, it's got 1, 2, 3. I think it has 4 panels in it. Pretty sure. So, yeah. I think that there's enough lights and electrical outlets already up there that are not going to be used or that I can easily repurpose, that I'm not going to have an issue teeing off of something that's already existing. I don't think I'm going to need to run too many new lines, which would also be a fun chore in and of itself to figure out how I do that. So. I just think Ranger would do better having the offensive power of Hunter's Mark in the base kit rather than a spell that uses spell slots. As a Ranger, you'd rather use for utility since that's their strength. Well, I mean, I think that also kind of like, I don't disagree entirely, but I feel like when I think of utility, I think more Ranger, or I'm sorry, more Rogue than Ranger. What do you think of a Ranger that places a mark on targets by hitting them normally, keeps a count, then detonates the mark within range with bigger effects for triggering more marks on the target? I think that's definitely interesting. I mean, I think Tales of the Valiant's Ranger does a good job. They basically, I forget what they call it, but it's basically they have Hunter's Mark, but it's like when they hit their enemy, they mark them, and it's just like an effect. It's not a spell. So what I did with my Ranger was basically like I based it off of essentially the Warlock, and I gave them what I called them natural manifestations, but it's essentially invocations. And one of them is essentially giving you they don't get as many invocations as a warlock. They get less because they still get other ranger features, so like they get less. But one of them is basically you can choose either Hunter's Mark or Ensnaring Strike. It's your choice. And like if you choose it from that manifestation, you know that spell, you always have it prepared, and you can cast it, I think, a number of times equal to your proficiency bonus. And those castings don't require concentration, if I remember correctly, something along those lines. And then the other like manifestations as you sort of level up have the opportunity to augment those. So they could like, there are ones that augment Ensnaring Strike. So I didn't want to just limit you to Hunter's Mark. I said, if you want to go Ensnaring Strike instead, that's an option. And then you also, or Hunter's Mark, you could take both if you wanted. But there are ones that like augment Hunter's Mark. So like maybe, when you kill a creature with Hunter's Mark, you can transfer it to a new target as a reaction. Or if it's Ensnaring Strike, they have disadvantage to break out of it. Or if they try to break out of it, they take damage and things like that. So. Yeah, your main panel's in a carport. I have 2 of the panels are outside in this new house. One's in the laundry room and the other one's in the garage. So I'm split up all over the house for these panels here. Do Rangers still have favored enemy? In 5.5e, no. In 5.5e, I think they renamed like the basically the feature favored enemy is essentially Hunter's Mark. Yeah. So in 5.5e, I hate it, by the way. I've made that very clear. But you could see it right here. It says you always have the Hunter's Mark spell prepared. You can cast it twice without expending a spell slot and regain all uses when you finish a long rest. And you can do the number of times you can cast this spell increases when you reach certain ranger levels. So that's what they've done for 5.5e to replace favorite enemy, is to just give you Hunter's Mark. Yeah. And then Hunter's Mark basically works the way it always has. Except now it does force damage as opposed to extra weapon damage. It's a different damage type. Favorite enemy could be an origin feat. I always like the way, my 5e fix for the Ranger was to basically just have you add like your proficiency bonus, like whatever your favorite enemy was, have it work the way the favorite enemy did in 5e, but then have you also do either like your wisdom modifier or your proficiency bonus in damage to creatures of that type, right? So if you picked undead, you deal your proficiency bonus in damage to undead creatures that you hit. And then like the level 20th feature is every enemy is your favorite enemy. I also allowed you to change your favorite enemy on a long rest at a certain point for my 5e one, and then at some point, I think it was like at 7, you could change it out on a long rest, change 1 on a long rest. I think at 14, you could change 1 out on a short rest. So you had the option to swap your favorite enemy as as needed. So what do you think of 4E as a whole? I'll be honest, I don't know anything about 4E, if I'm being completely honest. I remember when the books were coming out, I remember going to my local Barnes and Noble and reading some of the 4E books and getting very confused, because at that time I was playing a druid very heavily and in 3.5. And I remember reading the druid in 4th edition and just being very confused. And then I just walked away from it. The closest thing I have to any sort of experience with 4th edition is playing the Neverwinter MMO. Yeah, I mean, I know it came eventually, but like I'm just saying, I really didn't pay attention to 4th edition at all. I just continued to play 3rd edition till 5th edition came out. And then when I looked at 5th edition and realized that it had a lot of similarities to 3rd edition, but like simplified, I really liked it. Like I don't know. I like the concept of removing the confirming critical aspect, right? So that, you just roll a 20 and that's a crit. End of story. Not, okay, it's a hit. Now confirm your critical. I very much miss 3.5e Duskblade. 3.5e Duskblade and 3.5e Hexblade were two of my favorite classes. I really, really like those a lot. I also really liked 3.5e Scout, but I built some of that into my Ranger fix. For example, one of those natural manifestations that I mentioned is Skirmish, where if you move so many feet, you do extra damage when you make an attack. So that was options that I added to my Ranger. So, given the fact that it's gotten 17 sessions worth of playtest, the chances I think are getting pretty near that I'm going to just turn my Ranger fix into a PDF and find a way to release it for like maybe $5 on like I have to figure out what the avenue is. I don't want to put it on the DMs Guild because I don't want to give them that lion's share or the lion's share of my profits on that. So I'll have to figure out a way to do it, whether I like open my own store and just release it as a PDF that way, or do it through Patreon or something along those lines. But yeah, I will end up releasing that. Itch is another one. Yes, thank you, Punish Pumpkin. That's another one. I got to figure out what's the best avenue. I've been looking to use Fourth Wall as like a new way to do merch, because I like some of the functionality that they have, and they sort of have like Fourth Wall has like Teespring sort of vibes, but also kind of combos as like a pseudo Patreon as well, where like you can support there as well. So like they also have the opportunity to just upload like a PDF that people can download. So I got to figure out what the best avenue is, but yeah, I really like it. Like I said, it's gotten the playtest so far, and I don't feel like Feisty had any. And I was very honest with him. Well, playing 17 sessions, saying, please give me whatever feedback you have on the Ranger. Like, did you see any issues with like? Did you feel like you're falling behind in damage or anything like that? um, my only thing that I'm sort of bummed about that I wasn't able to find a way to bring in necessarily was I really liked my hang on. Was I really liked I really liked my 5e Ranger Beastmaster fix was that I gave them what I called as tricks, which were essentially the Battle Master maneuvers, but specific versions for the animal companion. And they basically got like the equivalency of like superiority dice. So they'd get different tricks like, fetch or on my mark, body slam, takedown, etc., where you could spend those dice when you have your animal companion attack, and then they could do, a cool thing like do extra damage or maybe blind somebody or things like that. That's the only thing I wish I could have found a way to like that fit into my 5.5e Ranger fix, but I wasn't really able to make that work and still keep it balanced. So yeah, I actually, you know what? I've had a couple other people who looked at my Ranger and they said they really liked the what it did, like how it kind of added more aspects to the sort of nature and exploration vibes of it. So what do I have? I think you start off with one manifestation and you end with 8. So I didn't make it as powerful as the Warlock, and the progression's a little bit slower, but you do also get other features. So when I tried to just sample whenever there was cool exploration aspects, um, No, that's why I didn't do the tricks and the manifestations. I cut the tricks from the 5.5e1. Monk is a beast in 2024. You are correct. Yeah. So no more tricks, unfortunately. I couldn't make it work. So I think basically Beastmaster. Um, all I did, I changed around some of the features for Beastmaster, and then I changed Hunter around a little bit. And I started developing a Witch Hunter subclass. I never got around to finishing it. Do you think they'll do a Swords Bard update with a weapon mastery? Maybe. I think, we saw Season of Magic is coming out. I don't know if Season of the Champion is like the martial equivalent. Like if we have a magic season, is Season of the Champions uh, the martial version, or is that something separate? And then could we potentially see a season of the marshals, where we get like a martial focused book or like series of events? I think that'd be pretty cool. Yeah. So I don't know. And what did I have? Favored enemy for my manifestation is choose between Hunter's Marker and Snaring Strike. You always have it prepared. It doesn't count against the number of spells you have prepared that day. You can cast it without expending a spell slot. When you cast it using this feature, it doesn't require concentration. You can do this proficiency bonus times per long rest. And you can choose this manifestation again. Each time you do, you have to choose a different spell from the list. Excuse me. I don't think Tedman was friends with Pickle because I don't think Pickle Boulder Shoulder exists in the world of Eternal Rime of the Frost Maiden. But you never know. Well, I'm starting to get a little on the sleepy side here. Like I said, the plan was to do this live stream earlier, but this one kind of came out of nowhere and time got away from me. So, but yes, as I am in the process of also doing all of the things that I've mentioned while also basically being a solo parent at the moment, I need to get some sleep. So I'm going to call this a night, and I will catch you all tomorrow, probably in some form. So I appreciate all of you. Thanks for coming and hanging out. Again, more live streams, better planned next time. But yeah, I really enjoy just doing like sort of my content as live streams or just doing other fun live streams in general. So be on the lookout for more of this in the near future. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.